no confusion. He said, she said, clearing up the drama with Wanda. Hey, it's me, Wanda B, and you are tuned in to He Said, She Said on IntellectualRadio.com. I am excited. It's Sunday. It's fun day. And I'm really excited today because I have my faves all in the house. I'm really excited about this. We're going to have a good time today. Talking about some things that have been in the news. So a lot of this is a few trending topics, as well as one thing I saw on the internet. And a lot of times you see things as you're scrolling, you go, that's pretty interesting. So I just had the great honor to actually be able to inbox and say, hey, come on and talk about this. I'd like to hear your viewpoint. Let's talk about that today. So to introduce who's here today, my little brother, my real life little brother, Garrett. So he's in house. So happy to have him here. One reason he's here today, you know what? I'll come back to that. I'll introduce everybody and then come back to why you were here this particular weekend, besides it being Labor Day. I also have with me my best friend in the whole entire world. Also, one of the reasons that kind of for the progress of this show, one of our first sponsors, absolute first sponsors, Journey to Wholeness Center. I think you guys hear me talk about this probably every single show. I may bring up Journey to Wholeness Center and tell y'all to go talk to somebody. Y'all now you get to meet the founder, the creator, the great Kimberly Davis. And then Minister Michael Muhammad is here, and he's been part of the Intellectual Radio family, has shown new Black leadership. And he had a post. So one reason he's here today is he made a post about some billboards that are up around the city and his opinion about the post. And I thought, this is a relationship show. It definitely was an interesting perspective. And one I thought that was something worthy of debating and talking about, and maybe debated is the right word, just having a discussion. I like to have pure discussions. This whole show was built and founded from a place of healing, creating, learning, how to communicate with one another. And so I thought this was something that we could discuss and maybe heal and create. And I have some of the greats here, great minds. What they say, iron sharpens iron. And these are the people I sharpen my iron with. So I'm happy to have them in studio. So my brother's here because my niece was going to be going to Northwestern this weekend. She had a 2:00 check-in to pack her all up. And last week they sent a memo and said no freshmen and sophomores on campus. Boo. Boo. So I was all excited. My niece, who has never lived in the Chicagoland area, she grew up. My brother moved away to Maryland. He became an East Coaster. He even has the East Coast accent, even though he grew up here with us. He's an East Coaster. And so she was going to come and be part of the Chi-Town family. And they stunted our little growth. And we're going to have to take a hiccup in our movements because now she's back at home. But he came anyway, check up on family and still be part of the show. But she didn't get to come. I'm so saddened. So she's been kind of not militant, but been standing up for the rights of the freshmen. Tell us about my dear niece, Kendallin.
So Kendallin responded in Kendallin fashion. Now, she's in the School of Journalism there, Medill School of Journalism. So she was editor of the school newspaper, as folks would normally be at Medill. That would be in your background. So has a keen interest in journalism, but also 18 and very outspoken. So she, on one of her social media platforms with her new classmates, was coined in her response that was simply 4 words: y'all wild for this. And she's had her first interview with the Daily Northwestern to elaborate on what that all means and the sentiment behind it. So she gained some followers, gained some prominence in the voice of the class of 2024. So that was we had a chuckle around that. Initially, I was like, "Is that really how you want to state it?" And she was like, "Trust me, Dad." And then it came back, and they're like, "Okay, let's have you elaborate." So she's quite proud of herself. Okay.
So they got to hear what was her stance? Her stance about what were they wild about?
She at 18, it was the timing of it. Because I will say this: there were families that were en route there were families that had shipped belongings already, and myself included. Plane tickets were, things had been purchased and so on. But at the same time, what the university was trying to do, obviously, was play things out for as long as they could, both vis-a-vis the state of Illinois and then the numbers associated with cases here, but then also the litmus test of looking at other universities that already returned to campus as well, and what their experiences had been. And if you turn on the evening news, mixed results would be generous. And they made a call that we've got to control the density on campus, and the freshmen and the sophomores are the ones who would be living on campus,
Right.
as opposed to the juniors and the seniors who tend to live off campus. And even that could change. So online until January 4, and she's with dear old dad for another few months. And that spared me the tears of having to say goodbye at 2 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. So now I'm here being a tough guy.
I was all ready to welcome her. I was like, we're going to make this great. And now she's at home. But Kimberly, you have a son that's off actually on a campus right now.
I do.
So how's his school doing out in Louisville?
So in Louisville, he's at the University of Louisville. He's a sophomore, and he seems to be doing pretty well. They just mandated that they have to do coronavirus testing for all students. The cases have been relatively low, surprisingly there. And most of his classes, he has hybrid classes where some of his classes are online and then some of his classes are in person, but they have minimized the class sizes. And so his challenge a bit is being a college student, not being able to socialize. Although I'm sure they're doing it in little pockets, but the campus, is not sponsoring any major events or anything like that, and so it feels kind of isolating. But he's back to business. I have a joke because now that he's a sophomore, when he was a freshman last year, I went through that. I mean, the tears, the checking on him, every day memorizing his schedule and his whereabouts and all of that. And so this year, now that he's a sophomore, he was like, well, Ma, if something happens and I get sick, are you going to come get me and bring me home? I was like, no, I'm not. And so it's just funny how much things change within the year. So I guess I've gotten a little used to him being not with me. But yeah, so far so good. We'll see.
So that's two very different approaches to it, and I guess maybe Louisville isn't having as much of the spread of it in their area, so it's not as. It's interesting how differently each college is handling it.
Right.
Yeah, Northwestern said that they consulted with obviously Northwestern Medical, and in addition to a recent spike in and around suburban Cook County, suburban Chicago, just the proximity, because the idea was that there would be this bubble, so to speak, sort of like the NBA. The kids would come in, they had Wildcat Wellness. They would test before they go, and then 2 weeks of a quasi quarantine shutdown where no one could come into campus, but for the students that were there. But then think about it. You've got academic personnel, you've got services, food services, and the people that work at the university. They live in and around the suburban Cook County area in the city of Chicago. Right. So you really couldn't keep that bubble the way that you wanted to without it being compromised. And I'm a few hours short of a medical degree, but that makes sense to me. So.
More than a few hours.
I'm a lifetime short.
Me too. I'm on that same track for my degree.
We'll get there. We'll get there together.
Just keep going toward it. So. One of our topics today is what I saw trending in a lot of the groups on Facebook, and we have a group, he said, she said. So join our group on Facebook. We have some of these same kind of conversations daily on there. So I'd love for you to join that group on Facebook. It's he said, she said, look for the yellow and black logo. So Dr. Dre's wife was requesting $2 million a month in spousal support. Now she says this $2 million for spousal support is for laundry and cleaning. She needs $10,000 a month. Clothes, she needs $195,000 a month. I have to see how many children she has. Is this just for her? Do they have children together? I will research that in a second. Garrick, do you
Two
have
children, according to TMZ.
They have two
Two
children.
adult children.
Adult children.
Yeah, they were married in 1995.
Okay, so she need telephone, cell phone, 20,000 a month. What kind of bill? Who does she got? I thought AT&T was high.
20,000 a month for her cell phone. Are you kidding
Who is
me?
she talking to? 20,000. Can you hear me now? Does she have golden service? 20,000 a month for cell phones? That's kind of education, 80,000 a month. She's paying for her degree. She's just gonna pay for it outright. 80,000 a month. Well, her children, are they college age? Well, maybe that's tuition.
TMZ said adult children, so I don't know specifically.
Entertainment, 900,000 a month. Is she owning the center? The entertainment. She has some charitable contributions, 125,000 a month. Mortgage, 100,000 a month. Her mortgage is less than her clothes bill, which is interesting. And then miscellaneous expenses. So a lot of people say though, she should be able to afford the same lifestyle she had while she was married. And that's a common theme, that if you live this lifestyle, and now if her children are adults and they raise them in the home, she's earned some level of care because her time was spent taking care of their children, let's say. So is this the lifestyle should she be able to maintain her $2 million a month lifestyle? A month. Everybody's talking. They can't even believe it. Come on now, a month, laundry and cleaning. If you're cleaning your clothes at $10,000 a month, why do you need clothes for $135 a month? Why do you need new ones? You could spend a lot to clean the ones you had. Are you re-wearing those, or just? I mean, just seems ridiculous. Or am I seeing this wrong? Because I know I want to hear your feedback. So if you have, I love to hear. This just seems
you're gonna have to get feedback from the audience on this, because it makes absolutely no. And I'm pro women everything, but it's just greed. It's just greed. But at the same time, if you want to look for a defense, it is the lifestyle that she has grown accustomed to. And so now you can go one step back and say, how can anybody become accustomed to a lifestyle like that? So you could always go back and challenge the lifestyle itself. I guess the lifestyle of the rich and famous, but at the same time, it's a lifestyle of excess. It's a lifestyle rooted in ego. It's a lifestyle rooted in selfishness and self-centeredness and all of those things that come out when you are just immersed in this money, especially with everything going on in the world, and you're saying, "Oh, well, I need $135,000." Is that what it was for clothes?
For clothes.
I mean, so it's just
$80,000 and for your phone bill. At this point, when, like you said, when the world is where we are right now,
it's too many people in need. Too many structures that need to change. Too many organizations that it's just too much. People and things and opportunities and experiences where that money could be useful in other areas.
I think she mentioned, though, she was going to use some for charity. Let me see how much she had put.
I would say this in context. Yeah. Dr. Dre's net worth is $800 million. This is according to Wikipedia. Probably somewhere north-south, who knows, but much more than $24 million per year, which is $2 million per month. I think in the context of they were married 24 years, and ostensibly the $800 million that he's become worth happened over the course of those 24 years. In that context, I think that $2 million and or $24 million a year for someone who is worth $800 million a year in terms of spousal support generically, not out of the realm of what makes sense. I think it becomes absurd when you start to break it down into I need $900,000 a month to be entertained. Are we not entertained? It's like, but yeah, so it's a breaking it down that I'm like, okay, yeah, who does this? But if it were just put out there as here's the number in context, this is what I'm asking for without the itemization, I could see that.
Guess when you put it like that, I mean, it's all relative. If we were talking 80,000 and breaking down that she wants X amount of 2,000 a month, uh,
Yeah.
it is all relative. And like you say, a lot of what he accumulated, if he accumulated it in the 24 years of their marriage, then she is, I guess, somehow, and if she remained a stay, if by agreement to them both, she was a stay at home mother, she took care of the home that she is due. Yeah, don't break it down and just keep this quiet. Don't let it get in the media. I don't want to hear it, but I don't know. You're right. It's all relative, but it's still the excess of it, like you said, in these times.
Yeah, the excess.
But it is.
But it's their lifestyle, you know. And so, yeah, the critique would be more on the lifestyle because that is what they're accustomed to. So,
What do you say, Minister Michael?
Hmm. Well, I think the bigger message is about our culture in the United States of America. We idolize the rich and the famous, and so it could be inside look on the fact that many people who accumulate a gross amount of wealth really don't know what to do with it, and we you know we develop these senses of entitlement. So I mean, what does she contribute to the accumulation of that wealth? Because being a mother and raising children has value, but obviously she's not attaching the value to her motherhood and her parenting. She's just attaching the value to her sense of entitlement. And so if we go by that itemization, there's no indication that she intends to do anything to uh, aid her children, aid her family, aid anything other than her lower appetites. So I think it just speaks to the mindset of a lot of us who accumulate a lot of wealth just for the sake of wealth. And it's just to me, it would be an indictment on the culture of wealth in excess and what it really represents in the human psyche and the human spirit.
Definitely.
I agree, as well as the emotional aspect of it. So we need to go there a little bit in terms of the potential vengefulness, the potential I need to be made whole, the potential, it didn't work out and I want to make sure I'm not getting left in the cold or, I come out winning, so it's all that kind of energy that we bring to relationships when they don't work out. When we do go through a divorce and, what were the reasons behind the divorce and, did he cheat or did she cheat? And, so all of that the emotional baggage that they carry with them for how long did you say they were married?
24 years.
24 years of emotional baggage. And you think that that's going to be fixed with money. And people do think that it'll be fixed with money. I want to be made whole. So she might be carrying some of that as well.
Yeah, so Wanda, as you know, I do couples counseling and other types of counseling. Some the paradigm I have to draw frequently for men in particular is to try to get them to evaluate whether or not that woman fell in love with their heart or their hand. And so it's a difference. So when she talks about the emotional texture of the relationship, just using this couple as an example, it lacks just on the surface. It's all this is superficial. We really not on the inside, but just from a superficial perspective of it, it seems like she's a very superficial person. And make no mistake, superficial people stay in marriages a long time, especially if their narcissistic supply is being met by the spouse. And so seems to be the dilemma that wealthy men find themselves in frequently, is that this woman is really loyal, not so much to you, but what you represent in terms of wealth and provision. And
But don't they choose the woman? I
Yeah,
mean, they chose the woman who
yeah,
is
absolutely.
looking.
Well, absolutely. That's true. Some of us choose superficially, and some of us, you know, money or not, we can choose superficially. Money or not, um, we can fail to assess a person for their ability to meet our intellectual and emotional needs. We can get the trophy husband, the trophy wife, and then later on, it causes a dilemma because there's no depth there. So it's not uncommon. So sometimes as men, we do want the trophy woman, and we don't necessarily measure all of
What
the
comes with it?
all that
Yeah.
comes with that. And then later on, we don't, so this is why we, especially black people, well, Americans in general, we have a very high divorce rate, but black people really have a very high divorce rate. So we're not good, especially in the United States, especially in Black America, we're not good at relationships, not marriage relationships. We all have a lot, or most of us have a lot to learn, and it starts frequently with um, a short-sighted choice of a mate.
Yeah. Yeah,
In
'cause
my experience.
yeah, I definitely agree. And I would argue that he's not a victim, that
Oh,
after
absolutely.
25 years, he knew what he had, he
That's
knew what
right.
he was dealing with. And, and sometimes on the flip side, sometimes men feel like, oh, she wants half, oh, she wants this, oh, you knew what she wanted when you got into the relationship or a little bit later on. So you're right. Sometimes men can be short-sighted and look for attributes or qualities in a woman, and she may possess those things in the beginning, but it doesn't take people 25 years to find out what they're working with. So I would argue that he's not a victim either.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
This all makes sense to me. And how the marriage begins versus how it ends.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's a journey in here for 24 years. That is not, I don't know the state of the marriage, but just as a measure of time,
It's pretty good.
they gave it a go.
Mhm.
And I look at divorce as being relative in the American paradigm. Yeah, it happens a lot, but it is a relative exercise whereby a monetary settlement, unfortunately, is the significant factor of this marriage termination. It is a determination as to where this money goes. Now, again, at $800 million, 2.4 million or $3 million, that's, I'm sorry, the 2.4, what was it, $2 million?
$2 million a month. She
Okay,
wants.
a month. That is 3% of what he is all about. That's what he's worth. 3% is $2 million a month. If you took 24 million, that is not a lot of money in the context of who he is. And if you look at Jeff Bezos, his divorce, the richest divorce, in certainly in American divorce history, the numbers are staggering, but the expectation is that it would be. Here, I don't know if this is something that the scrutiny is based on the absurdity of what she says the money would be used for,
Like she should have just told
Right.
or is it who's being divorced? But that's not a huge number in the context of what is their overall. And the 3%, if it now again, should she have divorce of any normal person that okay, you get X amount of money to do reasonable things? Well, then how is that fair in the grand scheme of things? Because this is not the average ordinary divorce. This is a celebrity divorce with a lot at stake. I agree that the the monetizing of the end of a marriage is, that's unseemly. But
Problematic. Yeah.
having said having said as much, this is not out of the realm of what one would expect if you divorce somebody that you've been with for 24 years and they're worth $800 million.
Yeah, I agree.
So-
And then we have to remember that it was Dr. Dre who once said he would sell his soul to the devil to be successful. So he probably
You
has
better
some.
preach.
He's probably
he's paying that price.
well. No, actually, your brother is right. That's really getting off easy from a financial perspective. But $24 million is drop in the bucket for his financial worth if that's real. But in terms of the quality, what it indicates about the quality of the relation, the nature of these type of relationships, if I'm willing to give up any sense of moral compass or dignity to achieve my success, then it would stand to reason that many of my relationships will only go to that standard, and that's a pretty low standard. So I will have people, my wife and others, who don't need to be that character, that don't need a lot of emotional, intellectual, spiritual depth to be with me, if that's how I think.
That's true.
So,
Definitely. So Gary Lynn, I missed some of his comments.
Gary's on fire.
Gary's mad. He says, I wouldn't pay her anything. Anyone with any amount of wealth is at a 60% risk of losing half their wealth by getting married through the state. Okay. And people have ulterior motives. Both. Sometimes it's on both ends when people get married. The ulterior motives isn't on just one. A kind of like Minister Michael said. Some people, sometimes the person you're with mirrors where you are. I mean, people become a mirror of. So if that's who he ran into, it definitely could be a mirror of himself. So, and not paying her anything, I don't know why you feel she shouldn't get anything if they were married 24 years. But if you wanted, I know I put up there child support, and Gary, I do know how you feel about it. If you don't mind, I'll bring up your sign. Let me see if I can find it real quickly. Your sign about your child support, and get everybody's feelings on that. But I missed some of his comments because I can only see the last 5. Do you have more to what Gary on Facebook said in his comments? Can you see more of them?
Prior, Gary says, Gary Lynn Scott, don't ever get married using a marriage license. Under a state marriage license, and perhaps this is Dr. Dre's situation, I don't know. But this is Gary's quote, under a state marriage license, it gives the state power over your estate if the state marital contract is broken. So the state becomes the determining body of how the marriage is dissolved, I guess. I'm putting words in Gary, paraphrasing what I believe Gary is saying here. And then Gary goes on, stay away from state-sponsored marriage. No one even knew who she was before she married him.
I don't know if that matters. If he wanted to marry her, do we have to know who she was? Or are you saying that they got together so she could get? I still don't know who she is till just now.
He is.
Right, but
I'm gonna pick you.
Former. I think she's known as a female athlete.
Oh,
I'm not
is
sure
she?
if
I
it's
don't really know her, so I don't think
Yeah, I
she
basketball.
don't
became
either.
famous with it.
Yeah, I think she was. I think she's a former basketball player. I'm not sure how far
Really?
she went, but she's known in those circles. So, if my memory is correct.
I don't think she became famous for. I don't think marrying Dr. Dre made her famous necessarily because I didn't even
Mm-mm.
know his wife and knew what she looked
Me
like
either.
until. Not saying that I would know everybody that's famous, but if you have fame, people know you. So I don't know. She may have gotten with him for the fame. She may have gotten with him for the money, but it definitely the money seems like that's the portion of what's coming out now. That's not necessarily the fame of it all, but definitely.
Yeah, I appreciate Minister Muhammad introducing into the conversation who he is at the root of who he is. So what we do know is that he's a or was and may have continued to be a very abusive man and abusive in relationships, and so that has come out in the media in terms of who he is and who his character is. And so at the same time, while we want to point fingers and again judge her character, some things that we do know about, we don't know if she was involved in the middle of an abusive relationship for 25. A lot of abusers don't change per se. And so, once again, the point that you brought up, he was attracted to her. They were together, and yeah, I just feel like nobody is a victim. But if we're going to look at her character, let's us, look at his as well.
So John says, interesting how this conversation has changed with Dr. Dre. Do you all remember how the conversation went when it was B. Smith and Dan Gadsby? I don't actually do remember. So I do. You remember? Fill us in, Minister Michael, on
As
B.
I
Smith.
recall, I think I recall correctly that B. Smith's husband was also demanding a large amount of spousal support, and he got drugged relentlessly through the media of all platforms for being, uh, you know, the husband trying to take his wife to court for spousal support of whatever. I can't remember the amount, but it was a significant amount. But she was, of course, the primary earner in their relationship, and so he just took a lot of insult and a lot of ridicule for being a man and asking his wife for, you know, spousal support at the breakup of the marriage.
Did they break up?
No,
I'm
and a
confused
lot
on
of the
this one.
ridicule also came from the fact that she was suffering from
Oh yes,
dementia.
Dementia
yes,
and the
that's
wife,
right.
And
the
That's
he
right.
present
had
girlfriend
moved
was
in his
wasn't
girlfriend in the
Right.
house,
That's
so it's
right.
really hard to
That's what
be
I remember.
right. It's really hard to read, and now you want to take our money, and
Right.
so the
Right.
story, the narrative was a little
Correct.
more extensive.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said, oh, because I didn't think they actually divorced.
And then he claimed that she was in agreement with
Right.
bringing the girl into
Into
the
the
house
house.
and so
And
forth.
when
In
she
a
was sick.
debilitated, incapacitated state.
Right, she was sick.
She's
She was
great with
very
it.
sick.
They get along just
They
great.
get along just great.
You can definitely find them on the day they find this great dealing with dementia. So that's an interesting one. And yes, I think the man when it's the opposite, it definitely always not always, but it is more discussed as being. I think Mary J. Blige and her ex that came up like that too, where the guy has to hear about it when he wants spousal support when the wife is the breadwinner. Why do you think there's a disparity with that, with the man versus the woman wanting spousal support? Is it the man
Yeah,
supposed to
I
be
don't
the
I don't really think it's such a huge disparity. I think you hear about it more the other way around. You hear about the woman wanting spousal support more. So I don't know if it's because it's more common that way, and it's not as common that you hear about men getting these large spousal settlements. that make people question or talk. But yeah, I'm not sure.
It's not a. You
As
feel
a
maybe it's not. It's not really a disparity. It just happens fewer
yeah,
that the men are at. So of course, when we
right,
hear about it, it's a bigger thing. It's
right,
a fewer incidents of men asking for spousal support,
right.
and so therefore it
Yeah.
But
becomes a bigger story. Yeah. No.
Uh, all right, so we're among friends. We can speak freely.
And all the viewers out there on Intellectual
We're amongst friends. I think there are some very antiquated uh, social constructs at play here. That just the reality is, if you are a woman that has engineered a large amount of money, you're probably not going to find yourself in a series of divorces whereby you're shelling out money in the same way as the CEOs and the famous men of the world. I just think that the power construct that goes with that plays out differently, and any number of dynamics in male and female relationships, such that a tremendously financially substantial woman that is in a financially lopsided marriage, and they're out there, they are probably in that marriage because they love this person and not because it's some trophy and this, and they're not, galloping through conquests that would lead them to be divorced at the clip of substantially, financially substantial men in these relationships, and it just probably doesn't happen as much
Men, you
in that
feel
same
when
way.
a woman marries a man who makes less, is not so much as for a trophy, is more based on that she really loves him.
Yeah, if a woman is, if she's the owner of a sports franchise, or, the inventor of, a drug that is tremendously successful, or a huge Wall Street trader, or, a super corporate attorney, you're probably not going to find her in a high profile take what you can divorce as frequently as you would men in that situation. Now, why that is, I don't know. This is just my gut, but I'd be willing to bet that it just doesn't happen that same way all that often. It happens, but yeah, I just think that there's fewer incidents of that.
So you're tuned in to He Said, She Said on intellectualradio.com. We've been talking about spousal support, which will kind of lead us into our billboard debate, but I'm going to go through what some of the comments. John says, Monique was the same way. When men ask for spousal support, it's because they're not real men. But turn it around and
Oh,
it's a
shots
different
fired.
story. So it does sometimes come to that. I mean, I do that. It is seen differently, but I think the women get it pretty tough too. It's not like they go easy on the woman that's asking for it either. I
Right.
don't think she gets gold digger. This she doesn't deserve it, and so I think on both ends, someone will have something to say about you. Like most people are feeling she's not deserving of her 2 million a month for whatever reasons and whatever. So I think it goes both ways. Just the reason why is going to be different for a man versus a woman. But I think anytime you're asking for spousal support, you're going to find people who will question what you brought to the table to deserve it. So, but for men, maybe it is harder on, or they get not harder. They will get they. Well, it's not even equivalent. Maybe we shouldn't even compare it because me saying somebody saying he's not a real man, they're also not going to say he's a gold digger and a. I mean, that's just the language we use for men versus the language we use for women in the same instance. So, what do you guys think?
I have a question to frame this, and I'd like to hear what you all think. Is spousal support more a measure of, and this is, I'm sure legally there's a definition for it and, what it actually is. But in terms of opinions, is it a measure of what you need versus what is fair for you based on the amount of money that is out there in said marriage? I tend to think it's more that, because do you need, again, it goes back to the Dr. Dre example. Do you need these obscene amounts of money to do everyday things like, $80,000 a month for education. Well, this should be a family Rhodes Scholar. They should have a research lab and just everything going on. They could probably get a COVID vaccine with that amount of money, just the family. Dr. Dre, he's a doctor, no?
Dr. Dre can have his own COVID. 80,000 for education.
So of course you don't need this money.
Yeah.
But I do think it is what you're just saying. Someone who's gone through a divorce herself, and when they come to you about the spousal support, it is how they break down how they're going to distribute the wealth of the family. So at this, and it can be agreed upon you both that I don't want it. I mean, I said I don't want a spousal support. Let's take care of the children. So you can go child support, spousal support, or both. It's really up to that couple and what they decide and what they debate or fight about or what they agree upon. And but it is based on, like you said, he's worth 800 million. So if he's worth that, then technically she could. And sometimes some attorneys will, and this will really be a good segue into what we're going to do. Some attorneys are really pushing for you, because of the percentage they get too, sometimes, but they're pushing for you to ask for as much as you can get. I mean, some of them are saying you're worth this much, and they do a discovery and they find out every single little bit that is out there that you guys have accumulated in that time. They discover it all and say, based on the time you put, and they will look into what happened in the years of marriage. So let's say they're 24 years. If she did, they will calculate this. If she took the kids here, she could have made money she could have made the money, but her role in the marriage and in the family was to take care of the children. That has value. And so they equate to, okay, so in your wealth, he could not have accumulated this wealth without you helping to take care of the kids. I mean, these are conversations they have with you. And so then they start putting a dollar amount to that. And so when they start doing that, it's either, if you're from a union that you're going to protect, I know and I'll bring my own divorce into this. We knew their game, sort of. We used one attorney. We came up with the same. We knew they take the money we did accumulate and take a portion of it, because they get a portion of what's decided upon. And we said, okay, we're not going to do that. What is really best for what we accumulated? And we, of course, didn't have 800 million, but but then you say, okay, well, you can come to this agreement without attorneys and you can really say, oh, this is what we're going to do. And sometimes I know my ex did see the value of me not doing some jobs I could have taken, I turned down, so I could get the kids to the games, and that I could have brought in a lot more money over the course of our years. But we in agreement agreed that we go do, I would be the one who got them to all the games and did all their. So I don't know. It's you can say I don't want spousal support, or you can go full out and, like you mentioned, I don't know if it's built on revenge or
just wanting to be made whole.
Just wanting to be made whole financially. And you can struggle with that, because you will have people in your head saying, that's your money. That's your money. Get your money. You earned that. You earned that 800 million. And she could very well feel that that's her money too. I mean, it is, I guess. I mean, spousal.
Here's the deal. You don't know what goes on in between a marriage for 24 years. You don't know the secrets. You don't know the trauma. You don't know the experiences. You don't, and so by not having that insider information to know exactly motives and motivations for why people do the things they do or how they go about doing it, it's really hard to place judgment on that.
It is.
You don't know what her experience was like, and we don't know what
his
experience was like.
I agree. We don't know, and unfortunately, because they put this, people will say, "Why are you even discussing that? That's their business." Because they share the business. They share all the business. I mean, it really does, and so it makes it fodder for our talk, because they don't keep this stuff private. They don't say, you know what, this is going between our family. We have children out here who will hear and see this. We not going, because they unfortunately let us into their business, and we tend to want to use it to not think about our own problems. We discuss theirs.
You got a couple comments
Okay, go ahead.
to add in here. John says there should never be spousal support. There should be a division of assets. Assets acquired during the marriage, no more. All assets acquired during the marriage. Gary Lynn Scott comes in and says, that's why the Bar Association Lawyers Union tries to break the bank when couples are divorcing. It's more money for their trade. Well, okay, I agree with that at some level. And then John comes back and says, if together you built an industry worth $1 billion during your marriage, at divorce, she or he is getting half, the end. Whatever he or she owned before is not marital assets. I will say that in my limited knowledge of Dr. Dre's empire, the vast majority of it comes from Beats headphones, and that was within the last 24 years. He built this brand. It got, I forget who purchased it. Was it Apple?
Apple,
yeah.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and that's where the 800. It's not just listen to the Chronic. No, it's $800 million worth of Beats headphones, and
Good point.
she was there for that. And for all we know, based on his track record, maybe getting beat.
Yeah.
So
Who knows? You don't know.
we don't know.
You
We're
don't.
not saying, but you been being your wife. Dr. Dre. We don't know that.
We don't know Dr. Dre. I'm sorry. It was out there. It was just right
She
there.
knew not.
Allegedly.
She knew not to run her mouth.
Allegedly.
That's why she want her payday.
Don't. I didn't say that. So
This is radio.
This is
Let's
radio.
do it.
it's going out there. So, so I understand. I know how you guys feel. I don't know about you, John, but Gary Lynn, who's Sky, who's joining in this conversation, has a big platform with child support and spousal support. So I know he's going to feel strongly about this Title IV. I think he always wants people to. I can't find really quickly your stance on this, but I know I know how you're going to feel about this. With the support, I know he has his children out of a 31. He has his children 15 half the time of a month, and he pays child support and feels that isn't fair to pay. And I won't even get into it, but that's kind of where. And I don't know this title, and I know it's Title IV. I know that from you, Gary, that is people can look up, and I know he wants that re-looked at it over how long you have your children still having to pay child support when you have your children half the time. So we won't get it into that. But as we're talking about divorce, I don't know if they have this in the Maryland area, but in the Chicagoland area, there are these billboards, and one billboard says "World's Happiest Divorce Attorney," and uh, I won't give her any free publicity, but I won't mention her name. But I know that's the one I've seen, and I've seen another one that said "Life's too short, get divorced," and uh, they are very prominent through the south side of Chicago or the thoroughfares. I know there's one on I-57 headed south that I've seen. That's the world's happiest divorce attorney, who's gonna make you happy with divorce. And so, Minister Michael, you made a post about this. Share with us your thoughts and how this post you had on social media. Share with us what it's about, what you said that day, and then we'll move into your thoughts about it.
Well, it was off the cuff remarks, so I cannot verbatim repeat what I said, but the gist of it was, having noticed these billboards for some time now, it always struck me that it's always a Black woman smiling. And it just something about that struck my spirit, that we are these obviously educated, intelligent women don't see the conflict between a smiling divorce lawyer and a community that is ravaged by single parenthood, a community that is ravaged with a dearth of children who lack adequate, healthy parental involvement, uh, while we're decrying our young people for looting and shooting and all of the other things that we find so distasteful, we as adults don't. It's just for me another indication how we don't see the role we play in what we produce in terms of family and offspring. So I just made comments and remarks around that, because these are little cues in society that tell us where we are in terms of our uh, being healthy or functional or whatnot, that I think we overlook. We just take for granted that it's okay we will applaud our sisters for being a educated person, a practicing lawyer, having the wherewithal to put herself up on a billboard, and be able to walk in and out of courtroom. We will, we'll give her the power sign for this um, concept of feminism. But for me, it speaks to something that um, indicates how society has corrupted our traditional values as Black people in particular. Because when I look at the landscape, when I look at our history, um, from the first time they measured the quality of our families post slavery, from the late 1800s all the way to about 1960, 65, um, we had 80% or better rate of having two parent families. Most Black children were born in homes with two parents there, in a lifelong relationship. It wasn't until around 1965 that those numbers were really 1960, then 65. It kind of went up dramatically, and here we are today, where uh, we've been so separated as Black men and women in our objectives and our perspectives and the battles we wage. It's either all about women over here, all about men over there. And I don't think we will ever um, achieve the aspirations of our elders and our ancestors um, separately. And if we don't resist the tendency for white women to indoctrinate Black women with their issues, um, we don't stand a chance. And so these billboards just, ring that bell for me personally. So I just use my little platform to have some commentary on that.
Kimberly.
A lot of good points, and then there's a lot of points that I just want to challenge a bit, like, especially white women indoctrinating Black women with their issues takes away the agency of Black women being able to make their own choices and decisions about their own lived experiences. And so we got to dig deeper, get under the covers. You say in 1965, two-parent households. There's so much to unpack in terms of why why the single Black women's, why Black women, why the women are out here working, what's happening with the men. It's so much to unpack, and to minimize it and boil it down to Black women listening to white feminists and wanting to be divorced. It's so much deeper than that. So it goes very deep. But the thing that I would critique is the commodification of divorce.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the billboards. Let's talk about capitalism. Let's talk about the commodification of any and everything that once was considered sacred is now for sale. And so that Black woman or that divorce attorney, because it's Black women, it's Black men and white men, all of those divorce attorneys have billboards up. So let's talk about what it is that they're doing. They're commodifying divorce.
Right. Yes.
And they're saying, hey, I'm trying to make some money. We just talked about this a little bit with the attorneys. I'm trying to get paid. I'm trying to make some money. So now there are real issues, and I don't want us to absolve the real issues that African American women face in terms of their relationships, in terms of the high divorce rate. I think it goes beyond them not wanting the Black family to survive, but they get the hit for it. They take that hit for it. They take that hit for not staying in the abusive relationship. They take that hit for having to support, in most instances, the man in the family. They take a lot of hits for the reason why, the looting and the this and the that, it all falls in the lap of the Black woman, which I think is very unfair and unfortunate, but that's the way we see it. And so taking away our agency and saying, okay, you all feel this way because you're listening to white feminists, or you feel this way because you don't understand the importance of the Black family, or you're just an independent Black woman. I really think that dismisses what's truly, truly going on. And it doesn't allow us to get under the covers and say, hey, yeah, I agree. We are separate. The Black family is separated. The Black woman has her agenda. Sometimes the Black man has his agenda. But at the end of the day, the family structures wouldn't be, sometimes you have single women who are holding that entire family structure together because of the choices that their significant other has made, that they still continue to get blamed for. So it's so many layers and there's so much depth to that. But like I said, I would rather critique the commodification of divorce and the billboards and the placement than, putting all the blame on the Black woman and saying, okay, yeah, you all don't, understand the value of the family and you all need to, divorce. I agree. Divorce shouldn't be something that, is just willy-nilly. I'm just going to get divorced. But also Black women are now starting to speak their narratives about abuse, about, having to maintain a family while the man is off doing whatever he's doing. So, we got to look at all of the factors in terms of the high divorce rate. And once again, look at the commodification of divorce. So that's kind of my take on it.
You are tuned in to
Well-
He Said, She Said. I'll let you answer to that, Garrick, on IntellectualRadio.com. I'm here with Garrick, my little brother, Kimberly, my best friend. Who people saying, who is she? She's cute.
You got a shout out.
You got to shout out. We've been friends since grammar school, since we were wee little. Our 8th grade graduation, hugging on each other. She is also founder and creator of Journey to Wholeness Center, holistic and wellness center. And so, besides being in the corporate world for many years, financially, but I mean, just a guru. She's a bad woman, I must say. I'm happy to have her as my best friend, my sister, my chosen sister. I have a sister, but the sister I got to choose. So very happy to have her here. And Minister Michael Muhammad, who is part of the Intellectual Radio family. And so a lot of wisdom here on the panel today as we discuss spousal support, divorce, and how that looks in our community. And I think we're about to pull off some layers of talking about it on this one way and going a little bit deeper with it. So some of the comments, Gary says, Black women are already the least married women on the planet. He says, I disagree. A lot of women disagree with her strongly. A lot of women are not accountable in marriage. And then the cute, she's cute comment. So,
Thank you.
So, what were you going to say, Gary?
You know what? This is just 20 seconds because I think the flow should go back to Minister in rejoinder to Kim's observations. But I will say this just quickly. Yeah, there is a commercialized interest in the dissolution of Black families, whether it be to divorce, whether it be to incarceration, and the irreverence of which we even advertise the very sober nature of a divorce attorney is different in the Black community. You wouldn't see that billboard in a white community. Even if there were an advertisement for a divorce attorney, it would not be on a billboard. It would not be so crass and gauche as to be celebrated that, hey, let's bust up a family quick. No
Using
matter
the word
how you get
happy
there.
and life's too short.
Yeah,
And
let's do it. And yeah, so there's something about the frivolity that comes with it that's just, again, it's unseemly for me. But Minister, you should probably respond to, you all got a back and forth
Thank
going.
you. Well, I would one point that you made about me taking away the agency of Black women, I think that is a little off the mark, because white America has taken away the agency of Black women. When
white
they-
and Black America.
white America has
And Black
created
America.
these social conditions deliberately by design. They have,
Absolutely.
from the time they brought us here in the holds of ships, their aim was to invalidate our natural bonding, our natural relationships, our right to choose our relationships, our right to be men, and your rights to be women. This is an agency that America has never willingly vested back to either of us. And so I'm saying, as a Black man who has daughters, Black daughters who had Black mothers, and coming out of the womb of a Black woman myself, raised, surrounded by both Black men and women, when I speak into the condition of our relationships, I'm speaking about the condition. I'm not the creator of the condition. And so there's a social engineering that has taken place where our young people only rap about drugs and murder. There's a social engineering that has taken place where our Black men, too many of our Black men, walk around with their pants sagging, right, and have low ambition. That's not an innate thing in us as a people. This is social engineering. There's a social engineering that has taken place that has created this paradigm where Black women feel as though Black men have oppressed them in the way that white men have oppressed white women. And I would challenge that. Some of us may be abusive, some of us may be non-committal, some of us may be philanderers, but um, when you say Black women have taken the blame, no, I think we got to go and look at the whole history of this. Traditionally, it's the Black man who has been blamed for being absent, not there, being irresponsible, being the problem that Black women are alone, the problem that Black children are lost, the problem that the Black community has this, that, or the other going on. That burden has been borne by Black men. Uh, and so what I'm saying to you and to us as a community, our standards have to be different from white America. If we keep trying to readjust our internal self-critique to make it fit the paradigm that white folks have going on, that's the very thing that they've used to destroy us and destroy our traditional values and the things that have worked for us traditionally. So yes, I'm saying that Black women are willing to be celebratory about divorce. Black women, read any social media stream or any platform on any given day, you will not find it difficult to find Black women who their mantra is leave, go, don't look back. Their mantra is, if it don't work, I'm leaving. Divorce and this concept that if any pressure is put on me, anything happens that I don't like, if I can't have a life of comfort where I'm stress free, then I'm going to dissolve this relationship, because I feel now that a happy relationship is stress free or damn near stress free. And so it's kind of it's kind of a pathology where we don't understand that you're going to have more stress on your own than you are struggling with a man, because the woman is defective, the man is defective. So marriage, this concept that we both have to be whole in order to be successful in a relationship, these are debilitating false social beliefs that it'd be very hard to achieve in any real sense. And that's why I think we have so many people that have unrealistic, false, fantastical expectations about what a marriage and a long-term commitment is supposed to be about. We look down on great grandmama because she struggled with great granddaddy and they stuck it out, and we, even though we sprung from that, the success of their union remaining together, we look down on her because we say she was weak because she held that marriage for 40 or 50 or 60 years. I'm leaving. I'm not going through that. We look at ourselves as strong because we will bail and abandon. We look at her as weak because she stuck it out and fought through it and found a way to improve to the best of their ability and create an institution that we call family. And I'm saying that it's a lot of contradiction in that personally, in my experience, dealing with couples and just listening to the social monologue and dialogue of Black women, you know, I don't see where Black women are willing to accept any critique of their beliefs and their behaviors when it comes to relationships. So I know it's very politically incorrect what I'm saying, because we've got a socially engineered environment that if you challenge Black women, you hate Black women. You don't like Black women. You don't love Black women. You're abusing Black women. Well, this is a false paradigm to me that our enemy has set up, who relishes in us being misinformed and misdirected about what it takes to really be a free, independent, and self-sufficient people.
Do you think the same people who orchestrated this are doing the same by setting the narrative that Black women don't? Is that coming from Black women, or is that actually coming from the people who that is their main goal, is to divide us, to make Black men feel that we don't want families, that we look at Black women from the past as being weak and we're ready to go? When I know in this particular thread, I have tons of men saying, don't even marry Black women. I mean, in the same token, you will find just as many Black men who don't really care for marriage, who will say don't even get married. I see a lot of that equally. I don't see us in both stages saying let's come together. I do see the women who say if you're not happy, leave, but I see just as many men saying don't even do it. Well, and does that come from the same people? I mean, the same people who want to keep us separated.
So let's be clear, Wanda. We don't govern our own affairs. We have lawyers and doctors. We have elected officials. We had a Black president, but we are not really in the business. We're not in the business of creating our own intrinsic institutions that have a different set of principles that insulate us from the ills of America at large. We buy into American stance. So just the whole diatribe we just had about money and all of this and the monetization of we take part in that. We take pride. It doesn't matter. There are going to be more people who celebrate that sister on their billboard, smiling and being celebratory about being able to get a pound of flesh for divorce than there are people like me. So I know I'm in the minority, right? So most of what we believe, if we really break it down and trace it, the etymology of our beliefs, we'll find that our thinking about our affairs is so superficial that we just like you come from the world of sales and marketing. They will tell you that 65% or more of every purchase we make in America, we think we're making the purchase on our own merit, but we've been programmed. So when you got movies vilifying Black marriage, where women are celebrating each other, and the man is always the villain, and he's always absent. When you got commercials that the Black man is always missing. It's the mother and the children, and if he's there, then they stick him in with some white woman, right? You look across the landscape of what institutions are needed to socially engineer the thinking of a people and see the role, the relationship they put us into one another as Black people in those institutions. Then we can have a serious talk about why I believe what I believe, why we believe what we believe, and who is benefiting by us having these beliefs about relationships and one another. Kim.
You know, there's no doubt. You know, I'm not going to debate or argue the fact that, you know, a lot of our systems that are in place have been socially constructed to continue to keep us oppressed and to continue to keep us divided. That goes without saying. I mean, and maybe we should say it, or maybe we should say it again and again and again. So we get that part. The part that I tend to struggle with is going back to, you absolutely did not, you know, if you felt that I said that you were saying that Black women didn't have agency personally, and not at all. But when we make comments that we are indoctrinated by white women, or we're indoctrinated by a white society, or we're indoctrinated by standards of relationship that center whiteness, that's when I argue about the agency of Black women not being, you know, why is it that, you know, why is the assumption made that we don't have the agency to choose freely? And when we talk about the Black woman, trauma, you know, that's the first thing that comes up for me is trauma. So when you talk about historical trauma, when you go back to slavery, we embody a great deal of trauma. It's trauma being a child watching your parent or your mother abused. It's traumatic. And so we are trying to, again, find the balance. For so long, the Black woman and her story, her narrative was always about being the strong Black woman. That grandmother who made it do what it do, who made it work, who was committed to family. We don't negate that. At least none of the Black women I'm connected to. We revere that. We revere that strength in our mothers. We revere that strength in our grandmothers. We embody it as women. We embody that strength. But then on the flip side, we can't ignore the trauma. You know, we can't ignore the ordeal of what she had to do in order for us to survive. We can't ignore the abuse. We can't ignore all the things that she had to go through and sustain. And so now Black women are now starting to look at that trauma that is embedded with them, because we could talk about relationships and divorce until we blue in the face, but until we can get clear about what's going on with us internally, we are going to have these issues. This is why we're separated. This is why we have issues with family, is that we're still processing a lot of historical trauma. We're still getting into the root, into the core of who we are as a people. So you're right. Everything has been constructed to the fact that we don't even know. Some of us are still struggling with who we are from the perspective of identity, from the perspective of agency, from the perspective of being educated, from the perspective, because for so long we've coming out of this umbrella of oppression. And that oppression also includes, we cannot negate or run away from the fact that some men are abusive. Some men are abusive. And that's not something you can just sweep under the rug and say, well, grandma handled it well while she was getting her butt. And as young women, as young girls, we witness this. So we embody that trauma. And so we bring that into our relationships. We bring that into our family structures. So right now we're going through a phase of radical healing. And what's going to heal the relationship, all Black relationships, what's going to heal those relationships, to me, I'm speaking from me, is us healing our individual, healing the trauma, healing what we saw grandmama do and what granddaddy did, healing that historical trauma, healing the trauma of the womb for a lot of women. There's a lot of trauma in there. And so that's what we're witnessing bubble up to the top. The trauma, women, men do get a bad rep about leaving their families, a bad rep about being abusive, a bad rep about all of that. But guess what? And I always say this, they came from the womb of a woman. So where was that woman's trauma? Where was her relationship with her son? So all of that. So we have to go deeper and say, well, we created this. So women always want to defend men who have gone wayward, but the men who have gone wayward had mamas. And what was their mamas going through? What were the mental issues that they were experiencing, the emotional issues, the abuse? What were they experiencing? This country. And so when you say, this country has white America, Black America, the bottom of the totem pole has always been the Black woman, because she births the men, she births the children. And so if you can keep her down, if you can keep her subservient, she can't be there for her children. She can't be there for her sons. And so then the sons, so it just is cyclical. It's intergenerational. It's historical. So it's many, many, many layers. And that's what I'm just trying to put forth. There are many layers, many depths to this, but it begins with the trauma that we as a people have suffered for hundreds. That trauma does not go away. It gets passed on from generation to generation. Is the solution a quick, happy divorce? Not at all. But is the solution also, I'm going to stay in this abusive relationship just so I can keep a family structure together, and then my sons get to witness me being abused, and then my son gets to witness me being subservient. So there's some balance there. It's not either or, it's both, and it's both. So what are we going to do? What are Black women going to do to empower themselves? What are Black women going to do to heal themselves, to heal their relationship with themselves so they can be good partners and good mothers? And the same with Black men. So there's some healing that needs to be done before we can eat, not even before, in addition to us coming to the table and being able to come together as a united front.
I like that. So Nicole says we all have ancestral memory.
Absolutely.
John says minister is pointing fingers at the Black woman, the exact thing that those who designed the institution of the Black church want us to do. Who benefits from us pointing fingers at each other is the systematic racist ideologies that has us mired in our economic lowliness of present day. So
that was a two-part comment by John. He started with, sorry, minister, I'm going to call you on that one. The issue isn't the Black woman. The issue is that we as African Americans have allowed ourselves to be coerced into institutions like the Black church that preaches a type of marriage and togetherness that isn't resident in our DNA. The problem isn't the Black woman. The problem is the racist institutions we've been hoodwinked into subscribing to, such as the Black church. And then that was the second part of what John said.
So I would agree with him that the problem is not the Black woman. And that's my point, is the aim of slavery, chattel slavery, was not the destruction of the Black woman. The aim of chattel slavery was the neuter gendering of Black men. The man was necessary to be broken. Naturally, when you break break the man, it has an effect on the woman. When we talk about trauma, the trauma cannot be isolated to just Black women. And so if we're going to heal this dynamic, I need to advocate. I need to be able to advocate for Black women. And I need to know that Black women are going to advocate for me. We fall into this paradigm, this Eurocentric model that this is white maleness, that white men fight for white men. And then the woman, she's left to her own to fight for herself. This is not from our ancient tradition. In our tradition, the man fights for the woman and the woman fights for the man at all times. But we've been assimilated at such a deep level that we don't even understand. And most of our reactions to racism and white superiority speak from the mind of somebody indoctrinated in the very thing that we claim we don't like. And so that's what I'm saying. When I say Black women have a hard time accepting critique, I'm not putting Black women down. I am not putting Black women down. I'm crying out to Black women because I need Black women as a Black man. My whole life revolves around Black women as a Black man. The lion's share of every dollar I've ever earned as a Black man was to support Black women and girls. So I am not against Black women, but I am not a coward. And I'm not going to play this political correct game from my vantage point of working in the conditions, spending my whole life working in the condition of Black people. There are contradictions that we must be strong enough to point out with one another. So the healing process does not include Black women smiling on a billboard about divorce. That's my point. You see, if we're going to talk about healing, right, we're going to talk about trauma, right? We talk about the court system. Who would argue that the Black man has borne the brunt of criminal justice and incarceration in the long, sordid history that we have since 1555 in the hells of North America? Black men have borne that burden. Black men have been traumatized. The overwhelming lion's share of trauma suffered on the plantation, those whips, those beats, the beatings, those lynchings, those were overwhelmingly Black men. The dumbing down of us as a people, that was the Black man who was not given access to information and knowledge and reading. So look, we're in a battle. But we don't understand. Well, all I'm saying, dear sisters, is that as you can be as strong as you want to be, but it's you put yourself in a self-fulfilling prophecy. You will never defeat white male supremacy without your Black man. I will never defeat white male supremacy without my Black woman. And if we continue to engage in these separate tracks, these separated strategies and argumentations and postures, where Black women over here, look, when the women's suffrage movement was initiated, they didn't want Black women a part of that. Black women went out of their way to join white women, out of their way, and suffered mockery, ridicule, insult, demonization, and they marched forward anyway on this ideal of women's suffrage. And if it was not for them attaching their struggle to the Black struggle, their women's suffrage would have came a long time later, maybe, right? So what I'm saying is, when I talk about the relationship between white women and Black women, that's a real thing. Our women, when we go on vacation, we don't go to Ghana, we go to Paris, we go to Rome, we go to Italy. You understand what I'm saying? We don't. Now this is a broad generalization. Of course, there are exceptions to this, but I'm saying just me standing back, looking, listening, watching, observing, right? We cherish Eurocentric standards of beauty, wealth, power, success, achievement, And wrapped up in those things, inherent in it, is white male supremacy, the domination of white men over everybody, second, white women over everybody else, and the destruction of the traditional heritage and standards and whatnot that we're gonna have to embrace in order to heal ourselves as a people. So all I'm doing is pointing out, when I made the commentary about the billboards, is that it is contradictory to the ideal that Black women somehow are going to empower themselves without Black men. And it speaks to the deeper conversation that we're trying to have very briefly here.
Okay. So we're tuned in to He Said, She Said with Wanda B here on IntellectualRadio.com. And we've been talking about, I guess, the relationships between men and women, Black men and women, and how it plays out with divorce, spousal support, but more so even how we communicate, how we see each other now definitely comes into play. Nicole says, can we stop stereotyping Black women? There are those of us that can take accountability and constructive criticism. Plenty of sisters are interested in wanting healing. So,
I have to, I have to say, Minister, I was going to ask for a little more clarity around Black women having a hard time accepting critique, because it sounds like that's at some level, I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like this is at the root of this kind of exclusivity that I'm hearing of who's got it, who's borne the brunt of racism in America from earliest on to today. Is it, and it's this kind of binary absolutes. Is it Black men or is it Black women exclusively, or who's got, who is this more central to their experience and therefore at the heart of all of our suffering, who's had it worse? And, this is just my own lens of listening to this, because a lot of what I'm hearing, I agree with, in that we can't do this on separate tracks. But then where I start to, just speaking for myself, where I'm lost is that Black women are somehow contributing to this separation of common cause around keeping the family together. I'm still not hearing where that catalyst is. And the only thing I can point to is, okay, Black women have a hard time accepting critique. And I just want to hear a little more around what that looks like, because I want to be there for the entire argument, but I don't know what I'm getting.
Well, first, let's be clear. I laid out a paradigm where slavery was about the breaking of the Black male, right? So that's not to say, and as I said,
and the Black woman.
No, well,
we can't exclude the Black women who were breeders and had their children, snatched from them. That's trauma.
So as I said, I laid out a paradigm where the primary objective in any war is the breaking and the capture or the killing of the men, right? That doesn't exclude the women. All I'm saying is that we exist in an environment where from my vantage point, and I've been paying attention to this a long time, it's no longer politically correct for Black men to talk about their trauma. It has to be selective. It has to be very. It can't be. We are in a place where we have become so polarized from one another. So when I talk about my trauma, I can't talk about my trauma and not talk about the trauma of my mother and my grandmother and my great grandmother and my aunties. So I'm saying from a Eurocentric mind, we've been trained to see each other as separate. And so I resist that.
But you do as well, right?
No, I don't.
That's how it sounds.
No, it sounds like that because I'm pointing out a contradiction. So I'm speaking into that phenomenon. In order to speak into that phenomenon, I have to speak the language of that phenomenon. What I'm fighting for is for us to understand is, from my perspective, we cannot have a all black male conversation. We cannot have an all black female conversation. We talk about relationships, the building of families. That is contrary to the establishment of adult, mature, long sustaining families. We have to have a reciprocal conversation. I have to be taught, trained, built up, educated, informed, and conditioned to fight and defend Black women. Black women have to receive that same teaching, training, conditioning, education, information to understand that as I'm defending you, your responsibility is to defend me. And when we get in the loop of me defending you and you defending me, there is no separation. It's only when I start saying it's all about me as a Black man, then that sends a message. It creates a paradigm. And I'm saying that deep down, that's not the mind we came to the shores of America with. I'm saying this is a thing that we've psychogenetically inherited by our deep yearning to be a part of America and to be accepted as normal in America. We have used the language of our oppressor even in trying to overcome the problems that the oppressor has created for us in terms of relationships. So, and I don't know if I'm articulating the answer to your question well, but I am not what I'm saying is that we can't solve the problem exclusively in male and female silos. We you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that
I would agree with that.
I'm saying that a relationship is me learning how to deal with you as a woman, right? And you can't assume that you know how to deal with me as a man if you're taking advice only from other women. If you're not willing to listen to my emotions, my hurts, my pains, my problems, my little injuries, my traumas, and then you don't know how to deal with me. And if I can't listen to your hurts, your pains, your traumas, your injuries, how will I learn or know how to deal with you if I only listen to the boys in the locker room?
So there's a reciprocity that's missing.
Exactly.
I get that.
Well, I get it to a certain extent, but I would say every social justice movement, every family structure, it has always centered the Black man. So I'm not sure where are we sensing that Black women have pretty much abandoned. I think that's what I'm hearing, that Black women have pretty much abandoned Black men, when since the beginning every single social justice movement centers black maleness and Black men. Not to say that it shouldn't, but it does. And so you always throughout time have always had Black women advocating, fighting for, defending, raising by themselves, doing everything that they can, for Black men, and unless we're saying, there's an idea, and I'm asking for you, Garrick, and asking for you, Minister Muhammad, do you think that it has shifted? Because traditionally Black families have always centered the Black sons, the Black men, have nurtured them, have supported them, have paid for them to go to college, whereas the Black girls sometimes didn't go to school because it was seen more beneficial for the family for Black men to be educated. So I guess that's a question. Do you feel like there's a shift now where we're not centering Black men anymore, and is that the problem?
My short answer is I don't feel like there is a shift, but I will say, and I hate to answer your question with a question. Speaking anecdotally, Wanda and I were talking recently about just growing up where we did in the 70s and 80s on the South Side, and the entire block was made up of families. Everybody had mom and dad there. It was not unusual. Now, you would be led to believe by the larger construct of at best indifferent media, and like that these families don't exist and never did. And the numbers tell us otherwise. I'm a policy person by nature as well. So I also know these numbers of Black families and marriages through the post-war era until the mid 1960s. The question that I ask is what happened from 1965 to 2000? Because I don't believe that Black women abandoned the notion of family or Black women headed for the exit because of, varying factors. Uh, and I also don't believe that Black men wholesale uh, abandon the notion of family. Yet where we are today uh, is that we do have this unraveling of Black families. Again, not universally, not wholesale, but the media doesn't cover plane landings, it covers plane crashes. And the numbers they're higher in terms of the incidence of splintered families, whether it's through divorce or violence or any number of things, incarceration, premature death, this and that and the other. It may even be a contributing factor is the post-civil rights era benefit on separate but unequal tracks of economic ascendancy and education. You go to a university, if you've got one Black man for every 4 Black women, but in a minority percentage of 10% of the campus, I can tell you at Georgetown is, well, why do you know all women? Because that's all I went to school with. It was, 15 guys in the freshman class and, 80 sisters. Now, that was out of a freshman class of 1,000 people, but there's only 15 guys there. So as you all go through this journey of life and know one another, of course, I'm going to know more women in college and graduate school and so on. There's just more of you there if you're talking specifically about the Black experience. So maybe that contributes to it as well. I think that there are positive factors that have unintended, arguably dispositive consequences, unintended consequences as such, as well as the obvious negative factors. So I don't know. But that's my $1 million question is what happened from 1965 to 2000? Because I think both sides are as committed to the survival of the Black family as ever. And maybe with better means by which to do as much. And then you got the billboards. Hey, come this way. Break it all up.
Break it all up. Right.
So that's why I started talking about social engineering. We have to understand that education was deliberately designed to demotivate young Black boys, make it more appealing to young Black girls. And this track has produced the paradigm that you're talking about. We have to understand that it was social engineering through that created the paradigm where a woman could not have the mother of her children in the home to receive any type of financial assistance from the government. This social engineering that flooded the Black community with drugs that predominantly destroyed and decimated the ambitions of young Black men and then made them the fodder for the prison industrial complex. This is all social engineering. All of these paradigms are designed to break us apart, think of ourselves as separate from one another, and play the part that white male supremacy has already dictated for our family. So corporate America opened up for Black women and shut down for Black men. So Black women now were vested with money, education, a sense of authority, a sense of entitlement. They now their mind is being affected by that experience, and the man's experience is the exact opposite. So it produces an effect. We are under the weight of diabolical people who plot how they want us to think, what they want us to say, what they want us to look like. This is why we still get white Barbie dolls in Black toy stores, and Black mothers go and give them to little Black girls, because This is a generalization.
Yeah,
I see
because I'm
it
like,
all.
not in my family.
I see it. No, not in mine either. But I'm saying we're the exception.
Yeah.
We're the exception. We gotta, this is not.
I
Don't
I
take it too
understand.
personal.
Yeah.
I work with poor people. I work with drug addicts. I work with people who are broken by society. I work with couples who don't know how to do what they need to do, right? So that's my vantage point. So I'm saying these things, dear brother, in a real sense, we are victims to these things because we look up to the very people who tell us we should be proud in the level of our assimilation. We don't look up to people who tell us, no, stay away from that. Don't trust him or her. No, they cannot be a voice for us because they have bought into the system that destroyed us. We need to you don't want to go. We need to absent ourselves from that system and insulate ourselves by building internally, dealing with our own in ourselves internally. We're the only people that can heal us with the help of God, right? So, but we look to the very people. We trust their doctors, we trust their lawyers, we trust their systems.
Absolutely.
And we look up to the people who succeed in their systems. So we can't even assess realistically our own thinking, our own reactions to the phenomenon in white America. We don't even see how they sit back and laugh with they know how we're going to respond. They know, just like now what's going on with the protest. They know if they put a few white people out there and the white people give us a few suggestions, we're going to follow what white people say. We know, they know that, oh, you can elect who you want to elect, because when those black men and women go down there with them powerful white men, they're going to think the white man's water is colder. Whatever the white man says, they're going to follow that idea. If the white man says we need to raise taxes, we need to raise taxes. We say we need to incarcerate, we need to incarcerate. We don't have people that we look up to that are in front of us that are fighting this system. And we celebrate those who accept the system. Going back to my billboard paradigm. I promise you, black women are happy to see another black woman on that billboard. I'm not saying all, I'm saying generally. They wouldn't be up there. They wouldn't be spending $20,000 or $30,000 a month to stay on that billboard if it wasn't producing a result and an effect. So when you look at television shows, movies across the board, how are they positioning us in terms of our relationships? The only man that I see trying to fight against that is my brother Tyler Perry, in his own weird, unique kind of way. I mean, most of us, we're not even looking at the phenomenon for what it is. We're being defensive. And if you critique me as a black man, now I'm defensive. I feel insecure that my woman is making more. Look, money don't make you a man or a woman. It don't give you character. A degree does not give you character or intelligence. It does not make you capable of fostering healthy relationships or helping heal our community from what has been going on and continues to happen to us every single second of every single day in this society. All I'm arguing for is I see a red flag that, from my vantage point as a black man growing up in Black America, that's all I know is black people. That's all I know is black women. I never dated a white woman, never talked to a white woman on the phone, never asked her for a number. I've been with black women my whole life. I've been fighting with and for black women my whole life. And all I'm saying is I can see a red flag when all I hear is my sisters talking about girls trip, woman trip. Every picture I see of prominent black women, especially, by and large, they're happy with the image of themselves absent of a black man. They would rather invest in a dog than one black man hurts you. Now you only want to invest in a poodle.
I gotta say this, and I know we're short on time, and Kim, you should have somebody in. It's not my show. Forgive me. I gotta say this. I don't know that a black woman being pro-black woman is necessarily anti-black men. Just like all Black Lives Matter, that's not anti anybody else's life.
I agree.
So that's just how I'm.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I mean to say.
Okay.
That's not what I mean to say at all. I'm saying a relationship is yin and yang. It's left and right. It's up and down. Right. It's black and white. It's a balance. So all I'm saying is, as much as I beat the drum for black men, right, I gotta when I say black men, I gotta mean black men and women. That's how I gotta define black man and black woman. And all I'm asking for is the same from my sisters.
What would that look like? I don't understand. So if it's not the girls' trip, it's not this. What does that look like? And I don't mean just in that little. What does that look like? What would you like to see black women do differently?
What I would like to see black women do differently is champion the ideal of commitment to black men. I would like to see black women not be so willing to write off black men because you had a bad experience. But what we don't talk about, women are abusive too. Men are traumatized by women, but we don't talk about that. Black women don't talk about how they traumatize men. Now, you don't traumatize us physically. Sometimes you do, but you traumatize us deeply emotionally. Black women, I don't hear any black women. We've had this conversation many times, Wanda. I don't hear conversations of black women acknowledging the trauma they cause to black men. I don't hear that conversation. I don't hear it.
I actually don't hear black men expressing what that trauma is for women to even know it happened. I don't actually hear that many men expressing their traumas.
Yeah, they do express their trauma.
Yes, I know how they express it by their outward response, but to tell me about the trauma, I see how they react, the reaction from being traumatized.
I work with black men every day, every single day. And part of what I have to do is teach men how to identify their emotions. Teach men how to label and communicate their emotions. They are suffering from their emotions and what happens to them, but they don't necessarily know how to speak it in a way that makes you understand what you did to them or what has been done to them. Our sisters, because you have the benefit of being women, you're more naturally sensitive, intuitive, and blah blah blah. You're a little more you communicate emotions better than we can in a general sense. You can put it all out there. You know what I'm saying? You can lay it out and give it life and color. Most men, we don't grow up in a society that teaches us how to deal with our emotions, let alone communicate our emotions. So you're not necessarily going to hear black men say it the way I'm saying it, but I'm telling you, as God is my witness, I work with black men from 21 years old to 73 years old every day. When we unpack their story, they suffered a lot of trauma, some self-inflicted, but a significant portion of them have traumas that they've experienced trying to love a black woman, but not being equipped with the capacity to know how to deal emotionally with what comes with that level of relationship.
I feel like I definitely hear you, and I do agree that that's definitely when we talk about them being abused, but a lot of that comes from their own trauma. They've had trauma, but it seems, for us to give them forgiveness, they need to do their work. Dealing with people like you, I mean, they need to continue to do that. And I understand them needing to hear us apologize for it, or the people who do it to be aware of it and take accountability for their actions. But if they never get that, they're still gonna have to do their work and get both ends.
That's what I was saying. It's trauma in
We're all
both.
dealing with these traumas,
You
and
know, we're all dealing with our traumas. You talk about, the crack, the drug infested. What about you got the crack mamas who making the
Absolutely.
crack babies.
Absolutely.
So that's why, yes, we all have to do our work to heal, so we can, and come together as a collective and understanding. So the one tangent that you went on in the Amen Corner is understanding systemic oppression and understanding the effect that it has had on us internalizing our own oppression, internalizing our own self-hatred, hatred of ourselves, hatred of our men, hatred of our women, hatred of our families, hatred of our communities.
And from that, though, I think we're asking women to be able to give. So they haven't dealt with it either. I mean,
Yes.
you're asking someone to speak from a healed place of helping men through and they're dealing with it too. So unfortunately, it really takes, I think you mentioned it, going into each person, it will have to do their work individually so they can bring this conversation. It's very hard to ask women to understand where men are coming from when they're dealing with their own traumas, and vice versa. It's vice to That's why the only people we all have control over right now at this point is ourselves and what we bring to the table. And I do think we really need to start doing that work. I commend any man that's taking their time to understand that they even have traumas. I mean, and to whoever it came from, whether it's from their mother, from wherever it stemmed from, them getting that work and that help brings a whole nother person to the table. That woman getting that help, then she does recognize the systemic problem we've all been that's come to us. I think we all need to go and start noticing our relations with each other, however that is, and dealing with ourselves first, because that's why I can listen. That's the only way you'll be open to listening to the problems a man may have and be able to understand it, to not take it as an attack, to not take it as, because I understand the whole system and how it's been put on us. Uh, then I can hear you, but it's hard to hear when you're dealing with your own traumas. And I think doing that work, and I'm glad that I have people who actually facilitate helping people do that work in all different capacities. So I will start with you at that end, because I know this is something that you do, Minister Muhammad, and definitely probably a place for men to go to and feel comfortable to be able to have that voice and talk about the traumas they've dealt with and deal with those. So tell us how they can reach you and come to you if they want to get that help.
Well, they can look me up on at Torchlight Interfaith Ministries.org. They can look me up at ArchangelHumanDevelopment.net. They can find me on Instagram, Minister MM. They can find me on Facebook. I'm locatable. I'm on multiple places where you can reach me. And sure. And the last thing I really want to say, Wanda, is look, as Black men, we're very deficient in our capacity to have healthy relationships. We are, because we model white men without the power and privilege of white men. So our concept of maleness is a white male macho machismo concept. And that just on top of what they're doing to us directly, a lot of time we're deficient in the relationship. So I'm not exonerating us. Don't get me wrong. I'm not exonerating. I'm just saying that it's got to be a balanced conversation. That's all I'm saying.
And thank you for bringing it from that standpoint, because I do think from the woman's standpoint is brought up more often than it is hearing what men are going through. We don't hear about that as often as we do, at least from the standpoint you brought it. So I appreciate that. At least we have to know what's happening, what people are saying, what people are feeling in order to heal it and work from there. So I appreciate that. Kimberly, tell us about Journey to Wholeness Center and then how they can reach you.
Yes. So I do spiritual life coaching work as well as intuitive energy healing. I could be found at journeytowholeness.org. I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm on all the social outlets. But what I primarily focus on is the spiritual component of trauma. I'm also a fourth year PhD student who is centering my research on historical and intergenerational trauma and how trauma can be healed, and specifically African American women and people in particular. Is where I center my research and how that trauma can be healed with embodied spirituality. And that's really understanding the energy. You spoke to the yin and yang, understanding the balance. Healing is all about balance. And so relationships are there to show us the imbalances, and our work is to bring it back into balance. So this was all, this whole conversation. That's why I love he said, she said, because when you're talking about relationships, the greatest teachers in the world are relationships. And so it's all about how we relate, not only to primarily to ourselves. We negate that relationship with self, but how do we stand in relation with ourselves, our relation with each other, our relation to nature. So it's all about our relationship. So that's where healing is going to come from for the Black community, is us healing the trauma within ourselves, healing the trauma of our relationships, healing the trauma of our families. And how do we do that? And so that's where I center my work. And I'm also a practitioner of that work at Journey to Wholeness Center.
I love it. And Garrett, what if they want to reach out to you about being the little brother to the best big sister in the whole entire world? What if they have things and questions about that?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't have a platform as a professional
What do you
presence
do?
for. I'm a policy analyst with the Securities and Exchange Commission in DC. So if that's of interest to you, well, no,
The policies.
but I will say this: I had a great time, and I will tell you, as someone who did therapy in my 20s, best decision I ever made. In terms of family, in terms of being able to utter the words coming from a construct of love was its weakness. Didn't really hear it said much in my community, in my household. And to be able to teach myself to love people and to hear myself say that and to get comfortable with it was everything. You can be so wounded in this life by any number of things that you're no good to anyone. And I got to a place in my early 20s where I was tired of being mad at the world for this, for that, for the other. I was a self-described relationship terrorist. And to be able to be of any use to anybody, I have to tell myself, Garrett, you're broken. And I don't mean in any sort of an outward way. On paper, you're great. When you're being great, you're being great. But the anger and the sorts of things that would drive that for me, I had to get right with that, or at least hear myself work through that with somebody who knew what they were doing, and that was for me, that meant the world. So I might not be a practitioner as the minister or as Dr. Davis, but I can vouch for that which you speak. Because it really starts as an individual. So I got to fly back out here for part 2 because you all dropped some bombs. You all dropped some bombs with like 5 minutes left. That we got to pick back up. So you all let me know when the same panel is here, and you all gonna pick it back up, and I'll be here.
I totally agree with everything you said, and I think it really does. You're an example of what Minister Muhammad was saying, that this outside of us can be so not perfect, but we're living in when we're trying to these
idealizations of what we're supposed to be. We've accomplished those things on this outward sense. But a lot of times what we're dealing with inside, the traumas we've had, the traumas we didn't even know we had, because Garrick and I grew up in the same household. So what I used to think was this perfect household of what we grew up in, when I started to analyze, what did I really see? I mean, even growing up with two parents in the household, what did I see? What kind of love did I see? How did I? And so we all can do our work with ourselves, because then we view each other differently. We come from a place of compassion. We give ourselves more compassion. I mean, we're hard on ourselves, and I know Black men have to be hard on themselves because the world is hard on them. Just as, I mean, it is on women too, but you know, I can't even imagine the getting shot just for being. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of stuff that if we start dealing just with the basics of who we are, is not weakness. You find the person who works for you. You find there's tons of. I continuously hope to always bring you somebody who you may attach to, who you may have seen on this show and say, I'm going to go see that person and talk to them. And they all have different thoughts, processes. So find the one that works for you. So you don't have to use this person, that person. You may have seen James Borichet, life coach, and say, okay, well, I would love to see him. Michael Muhammad, Minister Michael Muhammad. Yes, find that person, though, and work on you. And I swear everything around you will be different. You'll see things differently. You won't walk with anger. I know I was talking to a lady who was dealing with a man, and he was angry at the relationships and the women who had hurt him. He had dealt with a lot of women. That needs to heal just for you. It don't have to be to get into another relationship. It doesn't have to be. You got to start with you. Just coming from a different place. And I hope, if anything, from these shows, someone who comes on here, you can connect to and maybe reach out to and say, okay, well, I want to talk to you or help me, and you'll be better. You don't even have to tell people you're doing it, because I mean, but
I
don't. Because I never knew you even. No wonder you so just nice now.
See?
No, your little brother went and got some. See, I'm impressed, but I always have great people in my circle. I do think the more I work on me, the mirror of what comes back to me is different. It changes, and so I thank goodness always have good people who come back to me. So I want you guys, who are all good people, to also come back to me next week, 2:00 on He Said, She Said. I'll be here next Sunday with whoever I can get to wrangle in to come talk to you and have a discussion. We'll be here next week. So I appreciate all you who tune in. Thank you, John. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you. You guys help make the show at home, my social media co-hosts who chime in. And I appreciate you all, because you could be doing something different, and you choose to be here. And I appreciate that so much. Go out, find somebody to talk to, but with some training now, because I don't mean you with a little bit of knowledge.
Don't just go talk to Ron. Sage advice.
I'm always ask you to talk to somebody with a little bit of profession of some sort behind it, not necessarily your girlfriend. She could know everything and she know what she's talking about, but saying just maybe reach out to someone a little bit different this time. So I appreciate you all. I want you to come back here to IntellectualRadio.com, and He Said, She Said next week, same time, same place. Here, 2 p.m. He Said, She Said on IntellectualRadio.com. See you next week, you guys. Thank you so much. Oh, he said, she said, they said, we said, with Wanda. Oh, she's the real deal, keeping it real for real. With Wanda. All the confusion, no confusion. He said, she said, clear in the